Okay, so doing a video that kind of talks about something that I had mentioned before would be a good idea. And I didn't know about this, actually. I didn't know about this project that's happening right in downtown, but I did notice that there were that they've been doing some work down there recently in the theater district, but I wasn't quite sure as to what it was, right? And that's page 52, so I can remember. Now, keep in mind, and make sure you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. Keep in mind, what I'm talking about is they're renovating the theater district in downtown Tacoma, and they've done quite a bit of different things early on. The Pantages renovation happened. It was closed for 18 months. And so they really did some upgrades on that and really make it a little bit more modern. Well, I was aware of that. It was a $24 million project, right? But the theater district I always felt was not, it didn't have enough oomph, if you will. It has two theaters down there, Rialto and Pantages. And I felt like there's so much missing here, right? But that's starting to change. The other thing that's missing here is enough space for micro businesses, because you have small businesses and you have regular size business, but small business can fit in a lot of different spaces downtown, but micro businesses not so much. And micro businesses are starting to be where a lot of emphasis is being placed in other areas, because you have someone who comes up with a dream that they had and they have the money to do it, and they start off as a sole proprietor. Maybe it's a cigar shop, maybe it's I don't know, doggy daycare or whatever. And when you think about it, those businesses are really needed. Hold on, let me do this. Ugh. Did I get it back on there? I think I did. Those businesses are really needed, but there's not often space that is conducive for them. The focus has been placed on micro everything, from micro living to micro pocket parks, but never on micro businesses. And so it really does kind of take away from the experience. If you look at Freight House Square, that is an example of a bunch of micro businesses. You have these small, eclectic, unique little businesses and shops that cannot afford what a small business can afford when it comes to retail space. They just can't. And so you have these little small businesses. We're a micro business. You have these businesses that are in there that they can fit. They can make sense of that. There are different sizes. Some of them are tattoo places. Some of them are eateries. Some of them are painting pottery like what we have. Some of them are art booths. Some of them are candy shops. All of these different t-shirt shops, clothing shops, these types of businesses are very important, because when people are window shopping downtown, this is what they're looking for. In addition to small businesses, in addition to chains and bigger type places, right? What downtown Tacoma is lacking is good, diverse shopping. So while this project is great that I'm about to talk about, there also needs to be a big push in getting things like a Bath and Body Works downtown, T-Mobile shop, other businesses to be down there, which will create even more of a draw, because the micro businesses and small businesses alone can't do it. They're a very important component, but they just can't do it by themselves. You need to have a diversity of things downtown in order to bring in the people. We have everything else. We have everything else that's needed, but we just don't have spaces for micro businesses. And this area right there by the theater district is along in the section that I'm talking about, is along a very unique prime spot. There right now is a big park, and it's called Theater Square. And it's just an area where it's just a concrete, mostly concrete space. But they're redesigning and redeveloping this, and they're actually going along a huge area and redeveloping it. So one of the very first, let me remember, this is on page 52. And I've often said they should take shipping containers and build a structure out of it, because shipping containers as a business is a great idea, especially if you're a micro business, because you don't need a lot of space typically, and you need affordable space. And these types of things don't take up a huge amount of space, but they have a lot of different components that you can actually bring there, a lot of different types of things you can put in them, on them, outside of them, all of that, right? And we are a port city. You would think that it would be something that is done, but places like Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there's no water, you have several projects that are shipping container malls. And that's not done here. But let's take a look at it. So they're looking at the theater district today. They're talking about the history of the theater district. They talk about the transit area there. You have an area that looks like you're in a subway zone, right? The way that they did it back when they put in the original Tacoma Link light rail. It looks like a subway system right there. And it's very unique. Well, they're talking about how they're wanting to fix and redesign that particular area too, because it runs right next to this park. So if you look at it, I can't show you here, but there's the light rail line. Buses also go up and down this. So it's basically the equivalent of what Portland has. Portland has a transit mall. This is kind of what we have down here too. It's just not called that. But you have that area there, and buses and light rail picks up right there, and then you have that park. So it is a prime spot for you to put any sort of retail type space. So now it seems like that is what they're going to do, is they're going to do that, right? They're talking about doing a lot, right? Including piping in music all day long, changing lighting down there so it just, everything is really lit up. It doesn't cost a lot to do that, right? It doesn't cost a lot to do that. They're also wanting to encourage housing in this area, right? Now, this particular area could use quite a bit of work. It could use quite a bit of work, no doubt about it. But they're wanting to try to step this up a little bit. And I really and truly think what they're planning on doing is great. Now, there are two concepts for this park. I don't know which concept they're going to choose as of yet. Both of them are great. One of them I'm more for, and I will tell you about it first. But first, let's talk about the Commerce Thoroughfare, right? The Commerce Thoroughfare is where you have the streetcar and you have the bus system. And they're relocating one of the theater district station for the light rail system. They're relocating that. Along this particular section here, what they're wanting to do is to promote transit as an important part, obviously. They want it to be a primary arrival and departure zone for transit and car sharing services. Now, this is what they're going to change it to. They're going to increase street life on Commerce and improve pedestrian and transit rider experience, right? So, and they want to increase the sense of continuity across the district. Right now, it looks very broken up. But this is basically like a 2 or so block long section that they're wanting to work on, right? So the Broadway Promenade, as it's called, is where they're focusing on. And I said that they're going to have a couple of two different concepts that they're looking at, right? And this is where they're wanting to support restaurant shops, new housing by promoting street life associated with them, and have an anchor performance venue. Now, no matter which concept that they choose, you're going to have an anchor performance venue in both, and you're going to have a series of retail spaces that are going to be right there. Now, if you're not from Tacoma, this all may be Greek to you, but if you're from this area or been here, then it's going to make great sense. We have a lot of alleys in Tacoma that are really unique. One is called Opera Alley. Another one is called Antique Row, I believe. You have Gallery Alley. You have these different places that are really unique. And what they're wanting to do is to tie these different unique areas into this theater district, right? So they're trying to expand the theater district a little more, but also let people know this is where you are. This unique area is kind of where you are. When you're in Seattle and you're in Pioneer Square, you know you're in Pioneer Square. Here, the theater district, you're like, I just see two theaters. You don't realize it's a pretty decent sized area. So they're trying to encourage the day-to-day use of the theater district. They're trying to make it as a gathering, a space for folks. They already have the farmers market that goes on there, the Broadway Farmers Market, which is pretty successful. And so they're trying to get people to basically linger and use the space more. So they want to have more live performances, music in that area, things like that, right? There's a few different parks along this area, right? One of them is called Frost Park. And right now it does not live up to its potential. This was back when Tacoma was just building stuff in the olden days to say, look, we have these things here, it feels like. There was not much of a purpose to them. But what they're wanting to do is to make it so that you now have food carts out there. So these, if you've been to New York and you walking along the sidewalk or some of these bigger cities, you have basically a kiosk. That's what they're wanting to do, is do something similar. Have one of those kiosks here at Frost Park. The idea is to, again, make it so that it's a lot more functional, that it encourages people to stay there a little bit longer, be a part of that park, that type of thing. So they're wanting to do that, have places where people can sit, because right now, the only place you can sit are along the concrete steps. It's really not that inviting. You don't even know it's a park. You may think it's just a space that is got a couple of trees and some grass, but it's actually a park. And so they're wanting to update that and make it a little bit better. There's another area called Gilbert Playground, right? If you look at it, it's just basically, it's got a great mural on the wall, but it is just 2 or 3 bench seating area. It's just, there's no grass. It's just stone and stuff like that, right? Some landscaping. But what they're wanting to do is to convert that and make it specifically for children and families, right? So the purpose of this is to add in more features like a true playground, because this is not a playground that's there right now. It's a quiet pocket park, but what they're wanting to do is have it for families to come with their kids and have like playscapes and things like this. Not necessarily full playground equipment, but kind of close to it. So they're wanting to do that. These are the ideas for the 2 parks that are there, Frost Park and Ben Gilbert Playground. They're wanting to turn those into more active spaces, right? The idea is to look at all of the retail that's going in, or actually all of the residential that's going in, and telling families, we want you to spend more time downtown, right? And this is kind of the way to start getting to that point. The hill climb improvement and new parking lot climbs. And so what they're wanting to do is really focus on a few different areas where they can they're looking at the Spanish Steps, they're looking at all these different places, and they're really trying to bring them kind of more up to modern taste and standards. Some of these are just built, right? Back in the old days, they just built stuff to get to where they have to go. Now what the cities want to do is focus on those areas that are, because if you look at downtown, there's a hill, obviously. So some of those areas you have just a sidewalk going up, other areas you have actual steps. And so what they're wanting to do is to make those hill climbs look a lot more attractive, be a lot more compliant to the standards nowadays, and just more modern overall. Public stages, the whole idea is to have places for people to perform. Whether it be, just people doing poetry, whether it's music, singing, busking, whatever the case may be, dancing. They want to be able to bring more street life to this area because it is the theater district, right? They're really trying to promote arts because we are paying a huge amount of money for arts here. It comes out of our taxes. We're approved of that. And so what they're wanting to do is really bring all that together. They're talking about illuminating the heart of the district. So this is really unique because, again, if you've ever seen kind of like a stadium, and if you're flying over, if you're up top and you look down, you see all of the lights, and inside everything is illuminated. Well, that's kind of what they're wanting to do in certain parts of this area. So what they want to do is just make it so you just see light everywhere within a specific area, right? So they want to increase, again, the activity in street life. They want to make sure that Commerce, Broadway, Theater Square, and the architectural landmarks such as the Pantages are all illuminated very well. And so they want people to know, yep, we're right here in the theater district without question. Because right now, the only time that you're in the theater district for some is when you see the Rialto and you see the Pantages Theater. That's it. But it's also a much bigger area than that. They want to have real-time event maps. So therefore, whatever venue, if the Rialto has something going on, you will be able to know about it. Same thing with the Pantages. So it's going to have real-time event maps and things like that. Because again, a lot of times people may not know. They're just completely clueless on it. So these real-time maps are going to be quite unique. And you're able to actually see them when you're out there in the street. Street sound. So one of the keys is to create kind of this delightful experience as you're walking around. So therefore it's, music playing, that type of thing. Again, it's like identifying, it's wayfinding in a way. All these other things kind of lead you to this particular area, but you're still in the area based on listening to the street sound. So they're trying to turn simple sidewalks and things like that into light poles. They want to mount these speakers so that you actually can hear music and things like that, storytelling, all of that, right? It's pretty cool. They want to have programs and all that type of stuff and all of that, right? They want to do all those unique things. Now, let's get to Theater Square. Theater Square is like a rectangle type of space. And as I mentioned, Broadway's to the north of that, Commerce, which is also technically our transit plaza or our transit mall, is right below that. So it's sandwiched in between. Theater on the Square is right here. And then you have another building right here, right? So that's kind of the way that it looks. When you drive through there, you'll see it. You'll see the big yellow art building. And then Pantages is right here. Rialto is right up here. Frost Park is right here. If I can save this particular image, you'll have as the thumbnail, you'll see what I'm talking about. But the Theater Square is where they're putting the bulk of the cash at, right? This is where they're spending most of the money. You'll see all of this that they're hoping to do. So there's a couple of different concepts. One concept is to, and they're very similar in what they're going to offer, but one is very, very different. If they choose concept one, they're going to build an entirely new building, right? So it's going to be a building that's going to be built, and it looks like it's 5 to 6 stories tall, right? So it'd be a completely new build in this tiny little section. The goal of this building is to have mixed income housing on the upper level. So 10 units per level. And they're wanting to have mixed income housing, right? So Theater on the Square building's right here. This new building would sit directly next to it, right? That's the first part. It would also have a restaurant and a cafe on the bottom floor of this building, right? The other part of this is that they want to add a covered stage or a covered market. So this kind of takes the Broadway, I assume, the Broadway's Farmers Market maybe, and puts it under here, right? Possibly. Maybe not. Maybe this is in addition to that. But it would be a covered stage that's also a marketplace. So then therefore, when people are having performances, it's a covered stage. Otherwise, it's a place for there to be a market. Along the front, so when we're looking at the Commerce Street section, instead of having that, whatever they did on the side, I don't know how to explain it. Instead of having that, they're going to tear that down and they're going to literally put these storefronts. Now, this is where we're talking about the whole micro businesses. These little storefronts would easily work as micro businesses. Now, they have been showing, and I'll talk about shipping containers. If you look through this entire report that they've done, they're showing kind of how retail and shipping containers and businesses inside of shipping containers could work. It could be that they will plop those in and make them look amazing and have that as storefront. It could possibly be what they're doing. It would look amazing, to be honest with you. I don't know how many storefronts are going to be there, but literally those shops will be right in front of the light rail line as well as the bus system. So again, a lot of stuff. So when you look at this, when you're looking straight down, again, Theater on the Square is right here. The new building that they're going to build is right here. Next would be that whole covered market and stage area. And then you would have the shops right in front of that, close to Commerce Street. And then you have the old Woolworths building right here, right? But they're not done. So they're going to have an entrance to the bus turnaround area. That's still going to stay there. Public elevator is going to be built so you can get from the street level up, right? So now, instead of having to walk all the way up, you will have an elevator that will take you up. I don't think there's one there currently. So you're going to have an elevator taking you up. They're going to have a new play area that's right there where it's going to have water features and, you know, climb on big, huge rocks and all that. That's what they're going to do, right? Let's see, what else is here? Let's look. They're going to have an art wall that they're going to put in there. They're going to have a climbing wall. This is all concept one, a climbing wall, food kiosk, as I mentioned, which are going to be in that one park. So they're hoping to have at least 3 food kiosks, because Tacoma has been wanting to do something like this before by having what Portland does. You're getting a mix from this plan, looks like a mix of Seattle and Portland, right? With the food kiosks, as they call them, or carts, it reminds me of Portland and their food pods, where they have all these different little places where you can go. This actually allows for this to happen, and you don't have to rely on food trucks. The whole food trucks and then parking and then bathrooms and this, that, and the other is a stretch. It's hard here for some reason. So having these actual food kiosks is going to be great. There's going to be a street garden, which is pretty cool. Like I said, new storefronts, retail storefronts. There's going to be a mini amphitheater, which is going to be built right there. It's a small little area. There's going to be a movie and projection wall right there as well. A climbing and seating sculpture, canopy. So there's a lot of stuff that they're doing right in this general area, right? So they go through and they talk about what they're hoping to do, how big they went down into the very close details of everything. So when you look at Commerce Street, they look at all the storefronts that they're hoping to add. They're looking at 3,600 square feet. They break down the restaurant that they want to have in the theater building that they're building as being 2,500 square feet. The cafe at 1,000 square feet. They have all these different things. They have everything laid out. The building will also have retail, office, and residential, the new building that they're hoping to build. And so it goes into a lot of detail, right? It goes into more details about how they're wanting the art to look and all of that. Concept 2 does not build any building. But what it does do is it creates an event terrace, which will be out there, which is going to be quite unique. It also creates, and so the stage then moves from being over here close to the theater building, it moves closer to Woolworths. So along Woolworths, they would have the event terrace. Woolworths is no longer there. It's just got it's on the name of the building. And then they would actually have the covered market stage right there. They would still have the new store retail fronts right there. So they're still going to have more storefronts. So both projects have that, which is great. New storefronts, retail and ground floor, and redesigned park, blah, 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 blah. Seems like they would have additional storefronts with this particular project as well. So they're going to have 2 sections of storefronts. There would be a public elevator, but it would be on the other side, which is quite unique. And when you're looking at this overall, it's going to have a lot of the same things, right? A street garden, food kiosk. So the things that are for certain is there will be for sure retail storefronts. That's for sure. It will definitely have food kiosk. That's a guarantee. It's going to have street gardens. That's a guarantee. So we already know that it's going to have a covered pavilion area, that or a covered market stage. That we know for a fact. It's going to have an art wall. We know for a fact that's going to happen. What's up in the air is whether they're going to build another building or whether they have an event terrace as well, right? So I bring all of this up because every section of downtown now is starting to get redeveloped. And this is a project that is really, really important, right? They call it Transform. And the reason why it's called Transform is because they're really trying to transform that area. Downtown is starting to see a lot of life, and it's really trying to compete with some of these other areas. If you look at Ruston, which we were out there with Noelle's sister, my sister-in-law just went home yesterday. It was amazing having her here. But we took her over to Ruston, and if you look at Ruston, this is what this project's trying to compete against. It also is trying to compete with keeping people downtown, because you see a lot of development going on. The Tacoma Mall, for example, they're updating and doing stuff there. We don't know what's going on with the Tacoma Town Center, right? But the Tacoma Mall, there's ground broke and they're building stuff. All of those things are going to lure people to that area, right? Which is good. But we're trying to keep people downtown. So the city has to find easy, affordable ways to make this happen. And by creating these types of things, you're making the community more involved, right? You have to have people who are going to be people that do performances, right? There's a huge arts community here. There's a huge dance community here. There's a huge performance community here. So having all of those people who are already going to be doing their thing anyway, come downtown, it's an affordable way to do it. And when you look at the number of micro businesses that are here in the city, it just makes sense. The city doesn't have to invest a huge amount of money like what you see at Ruston to kind of achieve a similar project, if that makes sense. We have every bit of asset that we need downtown in terms of everything that's going on and things that have been there. They're just doing a redesign and showing you that the theater district is also up and coming. If you look at the brewery district, that's mainly financed by business. The theater district, on the other hand, it's like, but this is an opportunity to really make this a destination more so than just the two theaters that sit there. It kind of makes you want to come throughout the entire area and be a part of it. Liven up that space a lot more, give it a lot more potential than what it has. If you notice, the convention center is not far away, so they're trying to get the foot traffic from that too. So whenever there's conventions, it's an easy walk to this particular area, or you can hop on the light rail system, which will take you right there. There's a stop in both areas. And they're really trying to make transportation where people will leave their cars and really focus on taking light rail or bus, because where you have to, or walk, where you have to go is not very far. So they're reactivating this area. And the thing about it is they've already broken ground. They've already started construction on this. So this isn't something that's, going to happen possibly in the future. They're actively working on it right now. So anyhow, I can go on and on and on and on about it, but this is a really good thing. When people say, is Tacoma really, is it stagnant? Is it growing? Is it not growing? This is an example of what the city is doing as well to try to boost things here. They're still working on various different projects. They've done things all over the area to enhance it. And now they're taking their attention again and focusing it downtown. And this is a great centerpiece. We have the bookends, right? We have the entertainment area on one side, which is over there by McMenamins and the bars and restaurants and stuff like that. Then you have the brewery district over on the other end, and then you have the stuff in the middle. And there's not a lot of, oomph. This is kind of saying, look, the middle is also important. So those two bookends are great, but in the middle, we're going to put a project like this. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.